Test 1 2 3.
Yes.
Ready? Good. Okay. I'm going to call the special meeting of council to order at 6:05 p.m. And just to get started with our land acknowledgement statement. The town of Coalhurst is located in traditional Blackfoot Confederacy territory. We honor the Blackfoot people and the traditional ways of knowing and caring for this land, as well as all Indigenous peoples who have helped shape and continue to strengthen our community. All right, so first off, let's just get started with the adoption of the agenda, please. Can I get a motion for that? Great, thank you. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? That's carried, thank you. And the first order of business that we have here today is our 2022 annual audit report. And we've got members from KPMG here with us this evening. So you're welcome to come to these chairs here if you'd like.
Perfect.
There you go.
Let's do it.
And then I'm just going to turn it right on over to you guys to get started.
Sounds good.
All right, thank you. So I'm Dan Bosters. I'm a partner with KPMG, and with me I have Ashton Phillips, who's a manager who conducted the audit this year. And so I'd like to say thank you for taking a few minutes out of your meeting today to allow us to discuss the results of our audit and the financial statements. So just to start things off, we're prepared to release our audit report today, subject to our discussions with council and approval of the financial statements. I'm going to turn it over to Ashton to go through those financial statements and touch on some of the highlights for you.
Perfect. So I don't know if you have them open, but if you flip to page 1, it's the statement of financial position. So the statement of financial position gives you a snapshot of your financial assets, financial liabilities, and your non-financial assets of the town. The town's financial position has been consistent with the prior year. Financial assets are assets that will be converted into cash in the normal course of operations, and you ended the year with roughly $12 million in financial assets. Financial liabilities consist of all liabilities as of December 31st, 2022, regardless of when they will be settled. And then your net financial assets are assets of the town that it has available to fund future operations and projects without the need to seek additional resources, such as increasing property tax in other areas. And your non-financial assets are assets that are consumed in the delivery of services by the town, primarily comprised of tangible capital assets, which include roads, your infrastructure, buildings and equipment, and et cetera. The town ended the year with a cumulative surplus of $39 million. This is comprised of reserves of $7,240,107, equity and tangible capital assets of $29,810,413, and unrestricted net assets of $2,820,421. So the next page is your statement of operations and accumulated surplus. So this statement presents the activities for the year compared to your budget and compared to the prior year. Total operating revenue during the year was $4.5 million, which is consistent with prior year and with your budget, which is under budget by $600,000. Total expenses are consistent with the prior year end budget. And your operating surplus of $108,000 represents 2.4% of revenue. In the prior year, it was 9% of revenue. Overall, excess of revenue over expenses was $3.7 million. In page 3, this is your statement of changes in net financial assets. The statement of changes in net financial assets starts with your revenue, your excess of revenue over expenses, and then adjust for any capital expenditures and non-financial assets. The town had a net decrease of $65,000, bringing the net financial assets to $6.9 million. The next page, statement of cash flows. The statement of cash flows takes your annual surplus and shows your impact on your cash. So from operating activities, the town had a positive cash flow of $3.22 million. And then you had $4.3 million roughly was expended on capital by the town. And then $155,000 was used to service debt, bringing the cash at the end of the year to roughly $10.4 million. The next page and following pages are your notes to the financial statements. And your notes provide additional information such as accounting policies used by the town and individual line items. There was a note that we wanted to go over specifically, and that's note number 9 on page 14. So this note is a note that readers should just pay attention to, as these amounts are paid to elected officials and designated officers of the town. And just so that everyone has some more information, we did have to add some new note disclosure for the role of CAO in the current year, which is why you're going to see Chief Administrative Officer interim, and there's going to be no amount in the prior year. So we just had to add some information on that. The next note we wanted to discuss was note 10 on the next page. Debt limits. So the debt limits are calculated in accordance with the Municipal Government Act. This shows the amounts the town can borrow without seeking ministerial approval. Based on this, the town can borrow roughly 3.6 million with an annual debt service of 920,000. I don't know if anyone has any questions about that one. If not, we can wait till the end and we can discuss that a little bit more. The next one I wanted to briefly touch was Schedule 5 on page 22. So the statement of operations that we've already gone through kind of shows you your expenses by financial area. And this shows it a little bit differently. This is showing you by object. And so as you can see, the largest expenses in the year are going to be salaries and benefits and then amortization. Now, amortization is not accounted for in your budget. So that's why there's no number in the budget area, but then it is accounted for in your current and prior year numbers. That's a quick snapshot of everything. Do we want to answer some questions if you have any?
Yeah, we'll open it up to questions.
Sorry, can you
Yeah.
talk more about the debt limit versus the debt servicing?
Yeah.
And what that means?
Yeah, you bet. Let me just go back to that. So basically the debt limit basically means is like you have $3.6 million where you can use to take debt on. And basically without having the financial risk being upon yourselves, because if you go over the $3.6 million in debt, the council is the ones that are going to be liable for anything that were to happen after that point. I don't know if Dan has any.
Yeah, so if you look at the top line, your total debt limit is 7.1 million, which is actually just a calculation based on your revenue for the year. And there's this prescribed formula in the MGA on how that's calculated. But basically what the debt limit represents is that it looks at the overall financial health of the municipality to say, how much debt would the municipality be able to take on without, risking a financial default and whatnot. So that those limits are in place. If you were looking at doing projects and you wanted to exceed that debt limit, you would need ministerial approval in order to enter into those projects. And then they would assess whether they're going to give that approval or not. The second amount for the debt servicing limit is the amount that you'd have to repay within a year. So again, it's kind of like a financial debt covenant, just to make sure that the municipality is not overexerting itself when it comes to how much debt it's taking on and the ability to repay that debt.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions?
Sorry, I just have another question. I'm not sure how to ask it, so bear with me. The 3.7 operations over expenses, that seems like a really big number to me. Is that, what happens with that 3.7?
So the 3.7 looks like a large number because of your government transfers for capital.
Okay.
So that's being included. You see like 2.7 there.
Right.
So like the reason why it looks really big is because you got a lot of government grants this year.
Okay.
To do capital projects.
Right.
And so they kind of, in theory, are supposed to be offset to the expenses that you have. And so that's why when you look at your excess of revenue, it's a really small number, but then you bring in all those grants and it makes your income look a lot larger than it is just because of the grants and the transfers that you got from different government grants and whatnot.
Okay. So a lot of those funds have already been expended on capital items. So when you look at your statement of operations, the reason that you're seeing a large excess of revenue over expenses is because these take into account all the operating type items, right? But your capital purchases don't show as an expense. They show up as tangible capital assets on your balance sheet, and then they get amortized over time, over the useful lives of those assets. So amortization is included in the operations, but the initial purchase of that capital asset is not. So for example, if you bought like a garbage truck, right, you'd amortize that over a period of time, excuse me, and then the expense related to the amortization would be reflected in your operations over that time that it's estimated that garbage truck will be useful to the town.
Okay, that makes sense, thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just looking at the page 2 with the operations and accumulated surplus.
Yeah.
Under sales and user fees, is that where you put water? I'm just curious about that number, why it's clear in that number.
Why it's the one, we're talking about the 1.8 million?
Yeah,
And you're just wondering what's included in that number?
yeah. Because, well, I guess I'm curious where we're getting so many sales and users fees.
That would include utilities.
Utilities,
Okay, perfect, yeah, that's what I thought.
yeah. It kind of gives a better breakout on page 19, schedule 2 segment of disclosures. And it kind of breaks out what area that would, and yeah, 1.5 of that 1.8 is utilities.
Thank you. Sorry, can we talk about the decrease in assets? You mentioned there was a decrease. What was the decrease for?
You're talking in your changes in net financial assets, the decrease? Yeah, so basically how it works is when you acquire tangible capital assets, page 3. Just wait till you get there so that everyone can see it. So basically you start with your excess of revenue over expenses, and then you're gonna add and deduct for your capital items. So when you acquire capital, it's going to lower that amount. And when you have your amortization, it'll increase it. So it's just based on the amount that you acquired in the year versus what you amortize in the year. And then you also had a large change in prepaids, which you didn't have in the year prior, as well as water rights. So right there's almost $500,000 of that is due to items you didn't have in the prior year.
So for example, tangible capital assets, so like your vehicles, your buildings and whatnot, are considered non-financial assets because you're not going to use those assets in like a short term to create cash or pay off debt or liabilities and whatnot. So they're considered non-financial assets. But in order to purchase those assets, so the acquisition of assets, you're using financial assets, right, in order to purchase. So for example, cash, debt, grants, whatever the case may be, in order to purchase those. So that's why it's showing as a reduction of the net financial assets.
Go ahead.
So, sorry, jump to page 19. I was curious about under expenses. We have salaries, wages, and benefits, and we've got a list of by department. And we've got a public, I know in the town, a lot of our employees fit under public works, but it looks like some is under parks and culture, I guess. Is that what's going on there? We don't really have a distinction, I guess, internally, but you've made the distinction here.
The allocation, like, so when Mike is doing the breakdowns in the accounting and whatnot, and maybe Mike, you could step in to further clarify exactly how it gets allocated. But yes, depending on, I'm assuming depending on what the particular employee is doing, there could be some allocation between the different departments. Is that?
That's correct. We have the parks department, and many salaries are allocated. Portions of those salaries are allocated to that department. Whether internally we break them down in this format. It's not something that we necessarily do, but it is, those salaries are percentages given to those in various departments across the organization.
And then I noticed that interest was up quite a bit. It looks like over our budget number, right?
That would be on the left.
You're talking about the interest expense or the,
Revenue.
Oh, interest revenue, okay.
and that's a function of, the way the interest rates have gone this year in 2022, right? So,
Yeah.
It's obviously the Bank of Canada has increased the rate numerous times in 2022. So by virtue of that, your cash that's invested will earn increased investment income.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Just looking at page 2 here under expenses, for the administration, there's a big difference between the budgeted amount and what the actual amount was, although the actual amount for 2022 is close to 2021. So can you just share what the administrative?
Yeah, so-
would be?
So the administration is always going to be higher than the budget because of amortization. So in your budget, you don't include amortization, but for these purposes, we have to obviously include amortization, and it goes through the administration expense item.
Okay.
So then, so that it won't ever really look similar just because of that fact.
And amortization is a non-cash item.
Yeah.
So because you've spent the cash on your capital assets, when you're amortizing it, you've already spent that cash, but it does flow through your statement of operations. So that's why it's considered a non-cash item. Yeah. So it's not, so when you're setting your budget for the year, you're not adjusting your tax rate to collect taxes to cover the amortization, because that's contemplated when you look at your capital expenditures.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? If there's none, we do have 2 motions here. The first is to accept for information, the KPMG 2022 annual audit report is presented. Somebody like to make the motion?
Just a question ahead of time. Should we have a closed session with auditors?
We're gonna go into that.
You can do that now, by
Do that now?
worship, and
Sure.
give you motions that you come out
Yeah,
of closed
okay,
session.
let's do that. So would somebody like to make a motion to go into closed session with KPMG and council only?
Make that motion. I move to closed session at 6:21 PM
Thank you.
with KPMG and council.
Any discussion? Public question? All in favor? That's carried, thank you.
Okay, do sound check? Yeah. Okay, I had the microphone on.
Somebody's got to make some noise.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, can I get a motion to go back into, open session at 7:27?
I make that motion, I move to return to open session at 7:27.
Any discussion? Call the question, all in favor? And then can I get a motion, to direct the closed session discussion with respect to item 5, verbal updates with KPMG, remain confidential pursuant to section 24, advice from officials of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. Anyone want to make that motion? I will.
Sounds like he's doing
Okay, there we go. Any discussion? Call the question, all in favor? That's carried. Okay, so just coming out of that now, we've just got a couple of motions in front of us. The first is to accept for information the KPMG 2022 annual audit report as presented.
I move that we accept the KPMG 2022 annual audit report as presented.
Any discussion? Call the question, all in favor? That's carried. And then the other one that we have here is accept for information the 2022 financial statements report as presented. Anyone like to make that motion?
I move we accept the 2022 audit financial statements as presented.
Any discussion? Call the question, all in favor? That's carried. All right, well, thank you very much. We really appreciate your time tonight. We learned a lot.
That's good, that's
You guys are
great.
great.
Yeah.
You're welcome to leave, or you can stay if you really want to watch the rest of this too.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate
All right,
your
have a
time.
good night.
Thank you.
We weren't going to, but
Okay.
we can.
No, that's fine.
Okay, all right.
Can I just, your worship, just
Yes, of course.
clarification as to who this in closed session?
Who,
I wrote down the time, but I didn't write down.
it was Councilor Axon, yeah.
And you were just out of closed session.
All right, so we're now going to move into our budget adjustments. Have a good night, see you. And I'm just gonna, before we get going, I just wanted to kind of update, I guess, tell you the process that we're going to undertake here. So what I'm going to ask is that for both group or individual motions, I'm going to ask the mover to state and introduce the motion. And then what I'm going to do is just ask if there's any questions for the mover or from administration, and then ask if anyone is in opposition of the motion. If nobody is, then we'll vote on it at that point in time, unless somebody would like to speak to it. If somebody is in opposition to one of the group motions, what we will do is we'll go over the part where everybody's in agreement to it first, and then we'll pull out the section where where there might be opposition. We'll have discussion on that afterwards. Okay? And so just a couple of things to note too, that when we actually do the once we actually do the debate, what we will do is we're actually going to just follow more of our procedural bylaw. And so what I'll do is I'll have a member in opposition of the motion will speak, and then a member in favor can speak after that, and members speak once. And then the mover will close the debate, and then we'll all call a question. All right?
Sorry, just to clarify,
Yes.
doesn't our procedure bylaw say that each member can speak to a motion twice?
It does. However, I think that we can do, we'll see how it goes. We'll do up to twice.
Okay,
There we go.
okay, thank you.
All right, so with that, what I'm gonna do now is I'm just going to turn it over to our administration, and they'll let us know all the things, I'm sure.
Thank you, Worship Members of Council. Thank you very much for your time this evening as well on this and the work that you have done in preparation for this. I will apologize to Council, as I said to the Mayor and the Deputy Mayor yesterday at the Agenda Setting Committee. This wasn't gently lowering you into the deep end. This was a rather rough shove into Mariana's Trench, but you came through it admirably. In a lot of municipalities, you'll see the budget presented, and it's an issue of council removing things from a budget, which is a little contrary to your Pillar A, Goal 3 belief in making informed decisions based on the principles of good governance. Good governance takes work, and good governance takes leadership from council, and these are two things that you've embraced definitely in the time that I've been here. The work you've done tonight towards these amendments or these adjustments as well is evidence of that, especially in support of the background that you provided on each of these. The idea of this then is for council to drive the budget. You approved the base budget back in December. These adjustments are decisions that have come from, are the result of decisions that have come from council direction to administration over the last number of months, and for us to prepare the budget and prepare the appropriate taxation documents. So the budget adjustments that you have in front of you that members have carried, members are sponsoring deal with pretty much everything that's occurred between December 6th, approval of the budget, and today's date, and will take us into the rest of the year. I do have, I've actually got a paper copy of all the motions as well. It's item 6. For the purpose of expediency, we actually print the minutes beforehand and then work through them during the meeting. We don't predetermine outcomes or who's sponsoring things, but all of the motions are actually written down, so members of council have them there in written form as well. Everything else, though, you can find on the diligent agenda, and members of the public can follow on through the town website and diligent as well. I'll turn it over to Mr. Passy if he has comments in preparation.
Not too many comments. Happy to have this process how it's come about. Again, we're in a transitional state of how we're doing the budget and trying to make this into a process that council finds useful and get the information that you need to make the decisions. And so this is one step along the path, and continually working towards making this an easier process. One of the questions I received was in regards to what changes have been made to in the interim budget from 2022. So I'll just go over kind of what those items were that made that change. So one of the it's not in. Let's see if it's. I'm sure it's not right at the bottom. Right. So the 2022 interim budget added approximately 144,000 to the budget, and so that makeup is. As far as the expenses first, I'll do the revenues that would offset that. So then in salaries, wages, and benefits, there was an increase of about 120-ish thousand. That included an increase due to an additional public works employee, increase for CAO amounts, and then the CPI and benefit increase amounts. There was some additional road maintenance that was included, the business investment loan program, insurance across the organization, the adoption of an electric agenda system was included in there, and amounts for contract amounts for performing audits. And that added to about $156,000. And then revenues, there was an increase in the franchise fees from the utility companies, about 45,000. We increased the interest revenue by 20,000. There was a decrease of 5,000 in fine revenue, and then also a decrease in the transfer for the RCMP costs. If you recall, that's one where the RCMP amount is going up, where they're charging us a bit more each year, and we are offsetting it by a certain amount from reserves and from the unrestricted surplus to offset the impact each year. And so we're just decreasing the amount that is being offset to ease into that, the full amount that we'll be paying for RCMP costs. And then increases to revenues for rentals at in the parks facilities, in the community center, increase for the amount of revenue from the county that contributes to rec activities and events. They give us that amount every year. And then also there's a removal of a revenue that was, it's an accounting entry, but it shouldn't have been in the revenue. This has been removed, and it made reduction in revenue. So that came to about $11,000 in revenue. So the net of that, of those 106 to 11,000 isn't quite the 144, but there's lots of other little movements of, postage went up by a few $100s or some other small items that kind of changed. But those are the big ticket items that would have been changes from 2022 to the interim budget. That's all I have as far as introduction into this. So I guess I'll turn it back to the chair for moving forward in various motions.
Great, thank you. So can I get a motion to accept for information the 2023 budget adjustments report is submitted? Go ahead.
I move that council accept for information the 2023 spring budget adjustments report as submitted.
Any discussion? No question? All in favor? That's carried. So we'll get right into it here, starting with the budget motion from 00 general municipal. And Councillor Ackerman, you have sponsored this motion, so I'll just turn it over to you to get started.
Perfect. So I move that adjustment 008 to 00C, general municipal for $60,883 be included in the 2023 budget. I do believe that this speaks to providing Coalhurst residents with exceptional service. Just for those watching at home, the changes that I'm recommending are an interest revenue decrease, removal of a requisition allowance, and then a top up for salary, wages, and benefits. Just get back to the quotes here. I believe that these are adjustments that need to be made to better align our budget to be more cautious going forward with reducing project income from interest rates. We position our municipality to be able to withstand fluctuations that may arise down the road. The increases in salaries, wages, benefits help position the town to be able to have the proper staffing to ensure that the staff can meet the needs of our residents while providing exceptional service. So this would be an increase to the budget, but I believe that the impact to the citizens would be, there's going to be a slight change to the taxation required, but they're also going to have the benefit of staffing that can meet their needs.
Excellent. Is there any questions for Councillor Ackerman or from administration? Is anybody opposed to the motion? If not, I will call the question. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. All right, back here, we're going to move now on to budget motion 11B, council remuneration. And Councillor Caldwell, I'm going to turn this over to you.
Thank you. Just open this here. So I put forward a motion that adjustment 11B, council remuneration for a total amount of $25,000 be included in the 2023 budget. It does align with our strategic plan, Pillar A, effective and informed governance, Goal 3, make informed decision based on good governance. Did you want me to read the rationale out on this? I suspect I'll read the rationale.
Yeah, you can speak to it however you choose to.
Thank you. There is a little bit of a lengthy rationale on this as we transition. So the role of a municipal councillor involves a significant time commitment, council and committee work, committee events and engagement, hours spent reading materials for meetings, researching and learning to make good informed decisions. At times this is outside of their workday, taking time from family. At times in the middle of their workday, requiring they take time from their employment as unpaid or vacation time. And this workload is consistently increasing as we respond to changing dynamics of different levels of government, changing needs within our community, and increasing demands of our citizens. But in spite of this work, a lot of people are drawn to this work typically because they want to make their community a better place. They believe in service to community. And I believe strongly that it is this attitude that may be responsible for the prevailing belief that council work is viewed as not regular work, but more volunteer-based, with an honorarium attached. So I am pleased that our policy and bylaw committee, along with our administration, put in a lot of work to look at a policy in time for budget 2023. A policy was introduced to change the language from honorarium to salary to better reflect what we do. and propose an annual salary of $20,000 for councillors and $25,000 for the mayor. This did not necessarily reflect an increase to council remuneration, but was introduced for ease of accounting and for consistent budgeting purposes. For some council members, it actually represented a small decrease of revenue from honorarium per meeting. We approved that policy without any comparable studies, completing any comparable studies. The town of Coalhurst has done very well at studying comparatives to ensure their staff are fairly compensated, and we have not been successful with our executive. In 2017, Coalhurst undertook a compensation comparable and found that we were under the 50th percentile. I have since learned that we have done a study in 2021 as well to find that we were still under the 50th percentile. I was also looking at a study commissioned by Coaldale in 2021 that found that our mayor to be the lowest paid in comparable communities that they did study. With an average compensation of mayors around $47,000 and councillors around $30,000. The implications to this, the policy implications, would be that council remuneration policy C100-23, the section 6 component of that, the appendices and forms, approves the 2023 annual salary as the mayor at $25,000 per annum and councillors at $20,000 per annum. So the implications for our community and for our citizens would be that that perhaps we explore education about the role and responsibilities and the value of our council members. I also believe that there will be an implication in terms of we will receive increased uptake of residents to express interest in seeking council roles, as our compensation more fairly represents the time and work commitments. The financial implications would be a budget increase of $25,000 a year in support of the March 7th, 2023 approval of the council remuneration policy. And I would ask for council support on that.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to ask if there's any questions for Councillor Caldwell or administration. If there is none, I'm going to ask if anyone is opposed. If not, I will call question. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much.
I was looking forward to a really good debate on this one.
Maybe it'll come. We've got a bunch more motions.
Well, thank you for that.
Thank you. So we'll move on now to budget motion 11C, extraordinary meetings, and Councillor Ackerman's, this is your motion.
Thank you. So I move that 11C council meeting allowance for extraordinary meetings for $1,250 to be included in the 2023 budget. I believe that this speaks to us making informed decisions based on the principles of good governance. With our, I guess to speak to this, with our council remuneration policy, there is a section in there that speaks about extraordinary meetings and having funds available to attend those meetings. I believe it is that if there are a lot of those extraordinary meetings, they are no longer extraordinary. So my thoughts with this dollar value were if we had $1,250, that would essentially be 5 one-day meetings, which would allow the entire council to be able to attend one event or up to 5 individual events throughout the year. I don't believe that we would be going to a lot of these because I believe our remuneration policy speaks to a lot of what we are doing to be included in the salary that we're using. So that's kind of where that number came up with for me. Financial impact on this would be the budget would be increased by $1,250 covered by taxation.
Excellent, thank you. Again, I'll ask, is there any questions for Councillor Ackerman or administration? Go ahead.
So with that $2,500 figure that was developed by administration, I'd just like to ask administration what their thoughts were with that number.
Okay, Chair Council Poetry, it was a number based on, how many meetings could there be, and it was based on the full day, excuse me, the full day amount of $250 can be 10 meetings. So it's 10 meetings out the year.
For the entirety of council.
Correct.
Thank you. So 2.
Go ahead.
Yeah, you know what, for clarity, can someone define what an extraordinary meeting or event might be? we have that information before us?
We will short.
It's a race to get the policy. Councillor Atkins is gonna beat me, I guarantee you on that. Yes, through your worship to Councillor Caldwell, the policy defines, sorry, we're looking for extraordinary, right? The policy states on page 1, members of council may be paid an additional sum at the rates described below for participation in exceptional meetings or events if no stipend is provided. Participation in and payment for such exceptional meetings or events must be approved by council resolution.
Yeah, so we haven't really defined what an exceptional meeting or event is.
Well, there's the salary, which includes what is included.
Okay, so anything outside that, we would deem that to be an exceptional.
Yes, you're right, it's not defined, and I think part of the challenge with policy bylaw risk was trying to encapsulate everything that's extraordinary when you don't really know what's extraordinary, but it's one of those things you don't know you can't describe it, but you know it when you see it. So it's when it's outside of external ad hoc committee meetings, when it's outside of your ad hoc committee meeting, when it's out of external standing committees, when it's outside of standing committee meetings, when it's outside of council meetings, when it's outside of the usual, theoretically, it's extraordinary. But it is something that's going to have to be determined by council as a collective.
I wondered what an example of that would be, and I was just thinking about this is, you can tell me if I'm right or wrong with this, would be, FCSS is going to be doing their strategic planning, I think they do it on a 4-year cycle. And so that would be an entire day or maybe 2-day session. Whereas typically I would go monthly, but I don't know, like, I'm not sure if that would be something that would be extraordinary or not. But I think it could potentially be an example. I guess it's just a matter of how everyone defines it.
Well, maybe another example is this contribute in all councils meeting, right? That's not listed anywhere in here, but why it's representing our local events or celebrations.
It's not local, though, that's a regional.
That's a regional. So in that case, that meeting should technically fall outside of the council salary, because of the way I read this policy.
Well, then I think we need to fix policy.
Well, I think though, based on our conversation, if I may, Madam Mayor, based on this conversation that we're having, it looks as though there is a lot that could be defined as exceptional meetings or extraordinary meetings, that we haven't really had an opportunity to really flesh this out. I would be concerned about being hampered in our abilities to do our position, and I would request perhaps a friendly amendment to that dollar value to represent the amounts that were recommended by administration. So from the $1,250 to $2,500.
What are your thoughts on that amendment?
I wouldn't want to change it, but we could put it to a vote.
Okay. All right, so would anyone, I guess, so we have people in opposition to this. Would anybody would you like to speak to it again before we start the vote? Yeah.
Just talking about like having not all council meeting in Picture Week tomorrow, I do believe that relationship building is part of the whole council, and I would figure that would be included in our council salary, because it's something we accept to be kind of expected of us. It's no different than us representing our town during like parades or anything like that, right? It's something that we're going out to build relationships with others. So I don't know if it's an update either to the remuneration policy to include things like that, but I do believe that it would fall within our normal scope of what we should be doing as council.
And if I may address that, it seems as though that we don't currently have it in the policy. So we're looking at the policy that we have at hand, and we're looking at defining what is exceptional or an extraordinary meeting for the purposes of the budget. And so right now we have examples that represent potentially one event for all council members and an event for our mayor that encompasses possibly 2 days. So as I said, I worry about us hampering our ability to fulfill our goals.
Thank you. If I may add to that, when we talk about the general duties of council, the MGA speaks to that, so it doesn't actually have to be included in the specific policy because it's a given via our higher legislation, which is the MGA. And I do agree with Councillor Ackner's that I believe that that kind of work falls within the work of council, and that it would be fall under that $20,000 budget line for councillor and 25 for the mayor. I did want to say that if we're feeling like we don't understand the policy enough to make a decision on this, as opposed to raising the amount back to 2,500, perhaps we should postpone a decision on this line item. But given that, you know, we're a quarter into the year and it hasn't come up yet, I don't think there's a great need for this budget line, but as we talk about with other things, just to have it in here if we need it. But if it's something that people are feeling they're not understanding, although the budget was passed, I believe, right? Or the motion was passed for the remuneration policy, including the extraordinary meetings, and we did have quite a bit of discussion and hashed it out, then I would suggest that we postpone this one.
So that would be a motion. Are you making a motion to postpone?
Well, I would rather see it, if that's the way it should go, because I would rather see it postponed in order to just up the amount.
Or we could just debate it and then come up with a decision based on our debate. I'm not sure if that would be.
I'm
if we
gonna
want
see
to spend the time.
some outside counsel here about how we should procedurally handle this.
Procedurally, the motion postpone will trump.
Yep.
So there's been a request for a motion to postpone. So let me just catch up in the minutes here.
We'll give you a minute.
So Councillor Florence postponed to when?
Postponed to a point when members have had a chance to dig into the policy. Can't really write that. So do you need a date?
I prefer a date, yes, please.
Okay, so May 16th.
Let me just confer with administration here for a moment.
Sorry.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so thank you. The conversation was the impact on budget if you postpone it to May 16th, because you may have already had first reading of the tax rate bylaw. The budget will have actually been theoretically approved as well. This would be an amendment to it, which is not an issue. Council's in the driver's seat for this, but the impact on the mill rate is absolutely negligible at $2,500. So.
Great, thank you. All right, so Councillor Florence has made the motion to postpone decision or discussion until May 16th. So on that, I will open it up for discussion on that motion.
Yeah, I might. In reading through this, it does seem that through the policy, it does seem that there's a very few ways, I guess, to determine what is a exceptional meeting. And of course, we have the duties outlined in the MGA, and which are broad, of course. And you know, in my mind, you know, what if there was an emergency, a town emergency that occurred, fire or something or whatever, and we need to spend a big amount of time aiding our community members as our council in our council roles. And so I do feel that there is extraordinary situations that may occur, such as that, which do still fall under the MGA. And so I think it's prudent to keep it at a higher rate, I guess. And but that's the second motion. But I'm talking about, I think we have the information in front of us in order to make a decision right now. So I would say we don't need to vote on that.
I wonder if Actually, no, I don't need to discuss on this motion that we have in front of us.
Is there any further discussion? If there's none, I will call the question. All in favor?
To postpone.
To postpone. So we've got 3 opposed. That's carried.
I guess I should have read the section of the MGA within the body of that motion, because it's one line
Here we go.
that speaks about our meeting responsibilities.
Well, I think that we'll have a great discussion at the May 16th meeting.
We sure will.
Okay, so we're gonna move on then to 6.5, which is motion 11F, council professional development, and 11D, FCM convention. And Councillor Caldwell, I'm going to turn this over to you.
Thank you very much. Okay. All right, so I presented a motion, that adjustment 11F, and that is council professional development for $10,000, and the 11D FCM conference for $8,000 be included in the 2023 budget. Again, the strategic plan alignment is pillar A, effective and informed governance. Goal 3, make informed decisions based on the principles of good governance. And the rationale would be attendance at conventions, conferences, and workshops. To provide learning through networking and training specific to our governance roles are a critical component of good governance. They not only allow for more informed decisions, but provide council opportunities to share the story of Coalhurst and advocate for funding or other needs for our community. We also realize cost savings in learning from other potentially successful or unsuccessful projects and strategies. Their implications to the community and citizen, it's a more informed council, creating opportunities for our community in a more intentional manner. The financial implications, approving the $8,000 for FCM, funds a previous decision of council to send 2 members to FCM in May 2023. And approving the $10,000 is in anticipation of council approving professional development policy.
Great, thank you.
And I would put this out there, and I would welcome if council member wanted to debate these independent. I would be opening to split these 2 items.
Is there any questions for Councillor Caldwell or administration?
I have a question for the professional development one, which would encompass the registrations for the conventions and any registrations for professional development courses, and it would be split into the travel expense side of it as well. And there would be, but it's a pot that can kind of be mixed and matched a little bit depending on council's needs.
What administration will do, and this is based on feedback we've gotten, the number of emails today and some questions that have come since, is we'll actually put together for each member of council what your pot is. It works out about $4,600 per member per year. Now, FCM is a different beast because it was an extraordinary that sort of came over the wall, so it's going to be funded slightly differently. But travel expense for conference, for PD, those types of things works out to about $4,600 per member. The motion that you have in front of you relates to the professional development component of the policy that you are currently considering. It's coming back to council, I believe, on the 16th. If not, yes, the 16th. So there is a funding component in that policy that you've not addressed. That's preemptive aspect. The $8,000 that's part of this motion is the retroactive part. You've approved the motion of sending 2 members of council to FCM in May, but you haven't funded that yet. So that's where this comes. The conversation around how much for professional development for other municipalities, for everything else is a separate conversation. We're going to put together better information for you so that everybody understands. Does that resolve curiosity?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
I know the answer to this, but just to be 100% clear, the $4,600 per counselor does not include any remuneration. This is just travel expense registration.
That is correct. There's no remuneration in that.
Thank you.
All right, is there any further questions?
Yeah, sorry, I have a question for Edmund, and it's, I'm gonna struggle getting this one out. So, this $10,000 adjustment now, there was already $10,000 previously on this line. So this will, the total line item for this will be the 10 that was budgeted before, the 10 that's being proposed now, plus the 8 for FCM.
It comes to about a total between the, on my line of professional development travel expense, comes to a total of about 31,000
31,000, okay.
of what was previously there, and then the additions, these additions to it.
And does that include the 8,000 for FCM?
It does.
Okay, so
Original consideration. What you can do moving into 2024 is consider an allocation for that. Probably as a separate line, because it's going to be different if you're sending 2 to Toronto, or you're sending 5 to Calgary, where FCM is next year, or you're sending 1 to Newfoundland. It's going to change from year to year. Your requirements for that are going to change, and that's on the expense side of travel and accommodation more than anything.
All right, is there any further questions for Councillor Caldwell or administration? If there's not, I'm going to ask, is anyone opposed to the motions before? All right, would you like to speak to it?
Sure, I would like to see, I agree with the FCM conference and having some money in the professional development budget, but I would like to see the $10,000 reduced to $8,000. So that's my reason for voting against it.
Is there anyone that would like to speak for the motion? If not, I'll see if there's just anyone that would like to speak in opposition of the motion. You don't have to,
Oh,
if you've already done it.
Oh.
You're good. Councillor Caldwell, did you want to finish up before I go to vote?
yeah, I would not be prepared to accept that as any kind of a friendly amendment to the budget. I think that, again, administration did their due diligence in determining actual costs associated with the expenses and travel, all the travel costs and registrations. And again, I wouldn't want to hamper council.
Sorry, I wasn't proposing a friendly amendment, I'm just gonna vote against it. I was speaking in opposition.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Sorry, can I ask a question to administration? Sorry, I'm just having a brain fart right now. Do we know the approximate cost associated with sending a counselor to the Alberta Municipalities Convention?
The registration is usually about $500, and the accommodations, travel, and that side is about $1,500 to $1,600.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to now call the question. Councillor Caldwell's had her last minute there. So I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. First minute, I'm going to turn that over to you, Councillor Ackerman.
Thank you. This is a motion that Councillor Florence and I are both sponsoring. We move that council adjust item 11H to $0, resulting in a $0 adjustment to the 2023 budget. This policy was recently passed. When we were passing the policy, we spoke to it as a council, saying that we didn't necessarily see the need for this with our current council in the state that we're in. And as a result of that, I feel that even though, I guess, while supporting the policy decision being implemented by council, I do feel that we don't have to add a budgetary line item to this at this time. We do leave it open for future councils to be able to adjust this for what their needs may be at the time when they are in.
I don't know, maybe it's speaking for, I guess, so maybe not a question.
Okay.
How about that?
Because we'll move to opposition in a minute here, if there's any questions for clarification first.
Yeah, I do, if I could. Can I ask you, what does that look like to have a policy on our books that speaks about, sort of a reimbursement policy with no dollar attached? Is that a common practice, or is that? I guess I'm speaking to administration, if I may, through the mayor. To administration.
Your worship, through to Councillor Caldwell, I have seen it. It's not a common practice. The adage that nothing gets done without funding is a consideration members council carry for budgeting. If you want to see something accomplished, it needs to be funded. It comes down to a question of, do you want to fund something that in principle you support, but you maybe don't agree with the funding aspect of it? This is a value conversation with council. Yes, I've seen it. It's not common practice.
All right, if there's no further questions, I will ask if there's anyone in opposition to this motion. Okay, would anyone like to speak to that?
Would you want to go first?
Sure. I do think that the original budget figure proposed of $10,000 was high for that was placed on the administration, because I agree there's not a significant need, but I think based on what we're doing with a lot of our other how we're approaching a lot of our other decisions is that we're trying to keep our residents provide exceptional service to our residents. So we don't have a need now. If there should be a situation that arises, say someone's spouse is injured and disabled, for example, or their child that they're looking after, their older children maybe needs to come live with you or something. It's not just children here, right? So there could be a situation where we might need it, and I do think having a small amount for this line item would be prudent to have. I don't know. Like I know we had how we doing this. Everyone came up with.
Just speak to this motion currently.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Then I will. That's my comment. So.
Would anyone like to speak in support of this motion that's been put forward? If not, then I'll go to opposed, if there's any more for opposed.
Thank you. I feel uncomfortable with the idea of the work that's been put into a policy that I think speaks to our goal of becoming inclusive as a council. And when I speak inclusion, I'm speaking about families that may not have the same kinds of resources that we currently have at this table. And I don't want to be the one that puts it on the books and then leave the next council, perhaps someone that may be potentially vulnerable or uncomfortable because they are required to care for somebody and they don't want to be the one that introduces it to the books for any number of reasons. So I think that it's important. I agree that we don't need to have the entire amount there, but we do have to have some kind of money attached to this policy.
Would anyone like to speak in support of this motion?
I guess final statement from me is, I understand that we're looking to remove barriers for future councillors. At the same time, I do believe that one of the things that we're looking at is, if we are looking at people down the line, there is an opportunity to increase this funding prior to the next election. I think that for this coming year, the budget is for, well, it's a spring change for this budget, right? So I don't think that it would have an impact on necessarily residents that are looking to join our council at this time because that option is not available. However, it does have the taxation impact that the residents might see. Although it is small, it is still there. So I would like to continue to see this at zero for this year.
I'd just like to speak to this as well. I believe strongly in removing barriers for people, and I think that part of the work we have to do is to prepare for the next council. I think it's also another motion that was drafted that came in after Councillor Florence's and Councillor Ackerman's. And so this motion is co-sponsored by myself and Deputy Mayor Coalhurst. We move that the adjustment 11H family reimbursement for $2,000 be included in the 2023 budget. And the rationale behind this that I have here is having a variety of perspectives is crucial in making sound decisions, as stated by Alberta municipalities. And Hunt et al. 2018, I do have some academic literature regarding this. As members of the council, it is our responsibility to guide the future of our community, which often requires us to take into account matters that go beyond our elected term. This budget item aligns them with the recently approved family reimbursement policy, which seeks to eliminate the obstacle of family responsibilities that might hinder a citizen from running for office by providing funding for exceptional care for family members. While it is unlikely that the current council will use these funds, it is vital that we consider the needs of future municipal leaders in our community and allocate resources accordingly. So along with this, with our implications, the family reimbursement policy was passed on April 18th, 2023. And with the citizen and community, I just said that this aligns with the recently approved family reimbursement policy. And while we likely will not be using it, it is something that is an active policy. Then financially set up with $2,000 for the fiscal year. Since this is a new budget item, 2023 will be used to establish a baseline for the budgets in the remainder of this council's term. It might give us a better idea as to what the actuals will look like for our council. Of course, with the next council, it could look a little bit different as well. I am then with that going to open it up for any questions for me or Deputy Mayor Potry, as well as administration. If there's none, I'm going to ask if anyone is in opposition to this. All right, you may speak on that.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing this motion forward. So for the motion passed, as with a few of the motions tonight, the motion was passed, the money was not allocated. So I guess I disagree that it's irresponsible to pass the budget without money allocated, because there's been a few other areas where we've done that. And it is part of the budgeting process. And another thing that I would like to see is, if we do implement this at a later time, is that it be done as part of our full budgeting process, not as part of a spring budget adjustment. So I would like to see, and I think we owe it to the residents for it to be included as part of a full budget, not as a later adjustment or a later add-on. And I think, as we've seen through this year and through comments made at the table tonight, that nobody is going to use it. So I actually think it is more off-putting to put money towards a line that nobody's going to use, as opposed to place marking it for futures. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone in support of the motion like to speak?
Yeah,
Sure.
I hear that comment, Councilor Florence, and I just think, like, I've looked at it a few different ways, and I hear that argument. I think it is valid that we don't want to tax more than we need to, right? That's very appropriate, right? So, because this is an exceptional thing, it kind of aligns with, I think, our when we're looking at some of our other decisions around say the wastewater or the water treatment, things like that. Money is, you don't know when we're going to need that money. We're putting it aside in case we need it. It's kind of a risk. Way to manage risk, I guess, really is the way I see this small amount, is that the risk is low, that we're going to need it. But should there come a unfortunate event, maybe one was passed and there's a new council member, right? It could potentially happen. So I think the amount that we've allocated is appropriate to that level of risk, I think. So that's why I think it's a good thing to hopefully approve.
Thank you. Any opposition? Not assigning budget dollars to other items here. We postponed that one. And so to me, that looks different, because we haven't actually said that there is no budget associated with it. So in this, I don't believe that those are the same. And with this too, I would agree with what you said, Deputy Mayor Potry, in the sense that we do want to be very, very cognizant of the tax dollars. However, again, this goes back to this idea for me that if we have this policy in place, I think that we need to have some money there available should somebody like to take advantage of it. And I guess one other piece that I did want to point out too is that I noticed in the previous motion there was a comment about residents giving primarily poor feedback about this. I actually had the opposite after I had conversations with people and they understood the full policy. And so when I had conversations with people about that, they said that they saw it as a benefit to others who would potentially like. I will then call the question. So I did move. I'm just going to read this again. Deputy Mayor Potry and I moved. So where were this? The adjustment 11H, family reimbursement for $2,000 be included in the 2023 budget. So all in favor? Opposed? That's carried. All right, we're gonna move on now to 6.7, which is, let me just see here, budget motion 12, administration, and so this is a group, budget adjustment that's, Councilor Ackerman is sponsoring.
Yes, thank you. So I move that adjustments 12A to 12F administration for $47,250 be included in the 2023 budget. I do believe that this again speaks to providing residents with exceptional service. My thoughts are allowing administration to engage in visioning, professional development, joining associations, and attending conferences. We increase knowledge of our town staff. I do believe that this will allow for better, faster interactions with the public, along with professional development on their own level for growth within their roles in the town. Renovations to the town office will allow the town office itself to be more accommodating for future staffing needs. With the growth that we are expecting in the town, I do believe that we should be planning forward for that. I know that this is kind of an all-in-one line item, so if anyone has any objections to any of it, we'd be happy to discuss that. I know that looking at something like the strategic planning and visioning exercise might seem a little bit counterintuitive because council should be setting a vision, but I believe with the amount of new staff members to the town itself within the last year and a bit, and with the new CAO coming online, this might be a nice opportunity for a team building exercise where people can kind of.
Councilor Ackerman or administration?
Administration, I'm opposed to two parts of this, to 12A and 12F, but I was just gonna propose an amendment. Should I pull them out or just propose an amendment to the overall thing?
Is the amendment material just to those two particular ones?
Yes.
Can I suggest then we pull them out?
Yes.
Okay.
Which ones would you like?
So 12A, sorry, I have to go back to my list. It's,
Okay.
12A, strategic planning and visioning exercises, and 12F, building maintenance.
12A and 12F?
Please.
Okay. Is there any other, first of all, I'll just ask, is there any questions for administration or Councilor Ackerman before?
My question related to Coalhurst and Coalhurst as well, so
Okay,
for pulling them out, then
great.
that works for me.
Okay, so then if we're looking at the motion as it stands, is anyone opposed to everything besides 12A and 12F in that section? So 12A, or sorry, 12B, C, D, E, B, C, D, E.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll go into that, that if, okay, is anyone opposed to that, those ones? No? If not, I'm going to just call the question, all in favor? That's carried, thank you. And now we're going to start out with 12A. Did you have a motion that you would like to put forward for that one?
Sure, yeah.
Sure.
I had originally proposed this amendment, so bear with me a little bit.
Yeah.
So I move that 12A staff planning and strategic visioning sessions be set at $0 to be included in the 2023 budget. The reason I am suggesting it is because as you can see, I mean, we just voted it. I'm not opposed to the $20,000 increase for staff training and development. Not opposed to the association costs. Which is already a large increase because as council, we have decided that we see value in continued learning, and I support that. I do not, however, see value in setting $10,000 for staff visioning and strategic planning. Council does the strategic planning and visioning. Staff is kind of the boots on the ground. So I think we need to put the money towards making sure our staff can utilize and take good training, which we have, in order to be able to take council's vision and operationalize it. But I don't necessarily agree that the visioning, that staff need to have visioning sessions to envision council's vision. It's a little bit of a tongue twister. If the vision is that hard to articulate, that we need staff to have a vision on our vision, maybe it's not a good vision. But I believe our vision is a good vision. We've done strat planning, and we don't require staff to take on this role, rather than to take on an operational role and make it happen. I believe we spend a lot of time making sure that we have well-trained, highly competent staff, and I think we have the right people in the right place. And I think that means they're able to do their jobs well. And I truly believe our staff are amazing and have demonstrated their many, many abilities and desire to operationalize council's vision and strategic plan. So I would like to see this reduced by 0 it would have brought down that whole line to 22,500, but I would like to see that brought down to 0 because I don't think this is something that we need within our spring adjustment budget.
Great, thank you. Is there any questions for Councillor Florence on that or administration? Go ahead.
I actually was curious about the strategic planning and visioning exercises, and I wondered if administration would be able to take us through what the intent was of that funding to give us a better perspective on how it would be used.
I believe that was passed to me, so.
Yes, yes, I did.
Yeah, thank you. To the chair of Council Poultry. The intent behind this one was to not to create a new operational plan. Well, not a visioning plan or a strategic plan based on it. It was if there were associated costs with implementing council's strategic vision. For example, to operationalize some of those that may need some more planning or bringing in someone to figure out how to best implement that plan. Not a rehashing of the strategic plan, but maybe there's associated costs.
I have a question as well, if I may.
Of course.
Thank you, and through the mayor to administration again. I just for clarity, just for recall, when we were doing our strategic plan, we did have conversation about investing in having it operationalized so that create these high-level visions and goals and sort of say, okay, now let's get all the team on board to how do we operationalize these and bring someone in to support you in doing that, because I know our original plan was to actually hire someone to do that. And we kind of, I think we fell down on that one a little bit, but to forgive us, we had a lot going on at the time. Is that kind of what you're looking at with this?
Through the chair to Council Cole, that would be one aspect of it, is how to, if needed, how to operationalize this plan, whether that's, if assistance is needed in creating a corporate business plan, that sort of thing.
Yes. So more the creation of a business plan out of this. Thank you.
If I may, just in a sense, for example, if you look at Pillar B, Goal 1, incentivize business development, Coalhurst, and we wanted to do a study on something, we connect with Community Futures, and for $2,000 or $3,000, you can have X report done. In order to operationalize that aspect of it, this is providing funds for those little decisions or those little steps towards supporting council's strategic plan in order to get to. If it's the large ticket items, it's something that you state in the strategic plan, chances are the budget has already been approved for that.
Mm-hmm.
This is more of the, we just need a couple of dollars in order to get the information required to make that a reality.
Thank you for that clarity. That would have actually been very helpful, right, at the offset with it, to have that understanding. I thought that might be what it was, but I wasn't sure in reading that.
That's on us. That's on me. That's on me.
Is there any other questions for Councillor Florence or for administration? If there's not,
Sorry, no, sorry.
I'm going to ask if anyone is opposed to Councillor Florence's motion of $0. Would anyone like to speak to that?
Did you have your hand up first up? Did you?
Did you want to speak to it? I don't know. Whoever wants to speak to it first is welcome to.
Well, I can.
Sure, go ahead.
One. And I wasn't sure what the numbers were for either, so I appreciate the explanation from administration. And so that was really where my concerns lie. And I do think we have a lot of things in our strategic plan that are small, that could be done with a study here or a few $1,000s there. And so we appreciate the foresight in administration in allocating some budget dollars for that this year, so we can move along our strategic plan in a more timely manner. So with respect to that, I would like to see this dollar amount, some kind of dollar amount, not at $0. So.
Great, thank you. Would anyone in support of the motion to speak? Opposed? Anyone to speak? I just wanted, I guess, to say along with this, thank you for providing that clarification. I was kind of envisioning this as probably like more of an operational planning type of thing, which maybe is part of it. And I just wanted to speak to that in the sense of, we've had a lot of change here, and with a lot of change comes this need for people to understand to what their role is and how they fit within that. And I can see this being, like you said, many different things, whether it's for a study or it's maybe it is something where it's really about like, you know, people understanding the vision and how they fit within this. And I think that from a team perspective and a perspective of moving our strategic plan forward more expediently, sometimes you have to go slow to go fast. And I believe that this is one of the tools that helps get us there. And it's one of the things that I'm really passionate about is building a firm foundation in which we grow. And I think that this is, again, one of those things where that this is part of it. And so I very much would like to see there be funding associated with this. Anyone in support of the motion would like to speak? Would you like to do, would anyone opposed? If not, would you like to do anything closing for the vote?
Yes, thank you. Sorry, I was waiting, my thing closed up, so I was trying to reopen it and got a little distracted. No, and I do appreciate the comments clarifying it, and honestly, that makes a lot more sense to me. I'm going to stick with my original motion of $0, and just the spirit behind that, with it being an adjustment to the 23 budget, and you know, just realizing that we do have you know, cash in the bank when these little things come up that we can deal with. So I do really appreciate the information and the clarity, and this discussion has been very enlightening. And that is it. Thank you.
Thank you. So again, if the motion is, can you just read it again so that we know what we're voting on?
Or,
I actually have a.
oh,
Oh, you
sorry.
do? Okay, thank you. I will look at
No,
the straight one.
Councillor Florence moved that adjustment 12A, strategic planning and vision exercises, be $0, at $0 be included in the 2023 budget.
Great, thank you. I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Opposed? That motion is defeated. So along with that, is it prudent to just move on to F now, or do we see if anyone would like to make a different motion on that because that motion was defeated?
If somebody wants to propose a different motion, they're welcome to do that at this time, but you can do it at any time. You want us to move on to F, and then you can come back to it later if you decide.
Okay. I would like to make a motion that we allocate the $10,000 for strategic planning and visioning exercises 12A for administration. And again, my reasoning goes back to just what I had said. Basically that, again, strong foundation that we're building on, and I think that it makes a lot of sense with all the changes that we've had within the municipality.
May I ask what just a process? If that $10,000 was already a part of the 12A through F, we pulled it out,
We
and
pulled it
so
out.
that there is a motion required for that 10,000, we just don't roll it back in. Okay, thank you. I appreciate the thanks.
Any questions for me or administration? Would anyone like to speak in opposition of my motion?
I think we'll just be restating things we talked about a minute ago, so thank you.
Anyone in favor like to speak? If not, I will call the question. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. So now we're going to move on to 12F, and Councillor Florence, you had requested we pull that one out, and so I'll just turn it over to you to give a motion for that.
Okay. So can I just start with a bit of clarity from again? So is it better to propose a $0 amount or to remove it from the budget? Or does it not make a difference?
$0 amount, through your worship to Councillor Florence, a $0 amount in effect removes it.
Okay, sorry, dumb question. Anyway, okay, thank you.
No, not at all. Thank you for the clarifying process.
15,000 be removed from the budget. The reason why I'm suggesting this is because the office renos have been completed. Admin has indicated that this has been done with funds from the community center line, as there's been no big reno slated for this year. I would also argue, and this is just a new point that I added on, that this might be a good use of reserve funds. So this is somewhere we could save for renovations. We do have some savings for that. So I would not like to see the 15,000 go to this for the 2023 spring adjustment.
Any questions for Councillor Florence or administration?
I think it's, it's prudent to keep our building well maintained. Could administration perhaps describe, what type of funding, we have in place to keep our buildings maintained?
In the current budget, there's only a building maintenance. The Public Works Shop also has some funds set aside for it. For 2023 at $3,000. And so the community center in previous years has had some larger scale renovations done. And this year it was Kevin our director of operations had not identified a large scale project. There are some things they are doing there. I don't know the details exactly what's going on there, but there has been some work that's taking place there. In the previous meeting, there was some talk of maybe some future renovations being done at the building regarding water fountains. That they would come out of that budget to deal with those. As far as the town office, there is a line item. This would place that line item. This would place a line item for this building. Up to this point, the idea was to not necessarily create a line item. It was to use some of those funds from that $37,000 from the community center to cover the costs for renovations happening here. And so in the end, what would happen would be a overage in the administration budget, because we would put it where it's supposed to be, code it where it's supposed to be, but there would be an underage in
Under allocation.
a decreased amount or a unrealized expense in the community center budget. So it would offset overall, whether we wouldn't, the $37,000 wouldn't be fully spent in that line item, whether it would be an overage in the administration budget.
So just to clarify then, so from that $37,000, we would be taking this $15,000 and we would be left with whatever the remainder.
The intention of this was, the 37 would remain in there, and there would be an additional $15,000 for the administration budget for this building.
Yes.
The practice that would have happened would have just been that number would not have been, $37,000 worth would not have been done. It would have been reduced. That $22,000 would be the cap of doing any work at that facility.
Yes, and so basically we're just doing like a transfer to say that like this money would be, that money from the 37,000 would be allocated to this project rather than having a new money to the budget.
As it stands?
As it stands with Council Florence's motion. Of removing it from the budget.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
okay, thank you. Is there any other questions from anyone?
What about the fire hall? Good question.
There's 11,000. All we have about this one.
I have a
Go ahead.
question. Typically, what is our practice for unspent amounts? So we have allocated X amount of dollars for building maintenance. It's used for that purpose. We don't go out and say, oh, look, we've got this money, so we're going to, buy art, right? Like what do we do with the amounts that are left over at the end of if we don't use the full budget?
For the Church of Castle Caldwell, those funds then flow through to the accumulated surplus. And then the previous parts, I don't think anything has really been done with what has happened with the year-end surplus. I would hope to see in the future some kind of allocation method of what is done with that surplus. Currently, there is no policy or practice of what is done, but I believe we prudent to have something that does dictate what that happens to.
So like a reserve fund specific for building maintenance type of thing, is that what you're?
It could be one. It would depending on how council wanted to do it. You could split up 50% of the overall surplus goes to reserves and the rest goes to something else, or set up in reserve, or the opportunity to enlist whatever the imagination or priorities or strategic strategies of the council would be.
Thank you. Any other questions? Go ahead.
Sorry, again, this might be a silly question, but the surplus can't just cover the spring budget adjustments?
It, to the chair, to Councillor Florence, if there's ongoing costs, that would be a one-time funding for it. And so there's ongoing costs, they would then need to be funded in 2024 budget.
Right, okay, thank you.
Any additional questions? All right, if we have no others, just to reiterate, the motion that we're on right now is to remove the $15,000 from the budget. So with this.
I apologize.
Yes.
I thought you had said to allocate $0 to that.
Yes.
Yeah, which is removal of
Yeah,
15,000.
but then if she's saying that we are, if we're making a motion to remove it, then we vote in favor. If she makes a
Oh,
motion,
yeah, you're
allocate $0 and we all approve it, then that's.
Yes.
So it
Allocate $0.
Allocate $0.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you. That might have
Do you
changed
watch
something.
Big Brother?
Yes, oh, that was terrible.
No, that was learning from my council work.
There you go.
Okay.
No, that's very good. So, with this, is anybody opposed to Councillor Florence's motion? Of $0. Okay, would you like to speak to that?
I think, all our buildings need care and maintenance supervised, and this building is no exception. We have all the other buildings in town, some funding to keep them well maintained and operating well. Buildings that don't have, a maintenance fund may get neglected more than others. And I think for our town, the town office is really one of the main buildings that are facing our public most often, and should be in the best repair, I would think, of any of the buildings that we have. So it keeps the town an attractive place to be, and it helps maintain and meet our community's needs by allocating resources to keeping this building maintained. We know that buildings that are older require more maintenance than buildings that are newer, and as this building ages, the need will be there eventually, right? So I do think we should have an overarching policy regarding building maintenance eventually, but I think this gets us started in the right direction for now. And while we might reallocate funds from the community center section, that I don't think that's the right thing to do in practice. I believe what administration is doing here is doing the correct thing and allocating them to their specific pots so that we know how much, when we look at our budget, how much we're spending on each building to maintain it. Because if we go and look at our budget in the future, we'll say, oh, look how much money is on the community center, right? But actually, no, that was for this building or that building or whatever. So I think this helps keep everyone accountable, and we know, so that we know have a better idea, I guess. So.
Thank you. Would anyone in favor of the motion like to speak? Anyone opposed? Would you like to do like a closing?
No, I think that I really appreciate your point, Deputy Mayor Coalhurst, that I do that all buildings need to have maintenance and setting those funds aside. But just given that it is a budget adjustment for this year, I would still be in favor of setting that line at 0, but going forward, would like to see that broken out into a specific line item so that it's more accurate for tracking, like you've indicated.
Great, thank you. So can we just read the motion again to make sure that we're saying it right?
So the motion that I had written down originally was that adjustment 12F be removed from the budget, is how it was presented by Councillor Florence. However, Councillor Caldwell rearticulated that adjustment 12F be $0 in the 2023 budget. You're the mover, Councillor Florence. How would you like it stated?
As $0 in the budget.
Okay, $0 in the budget.
Thank you.
So the motion is Councillor Florence moved that adjustment 12F be $0 for the 2023 budget.
Thank you. So I will call the question. All those in favor? Opposed?
Oh my God.
That is defeated.
I love that we have different views.
So along with that, we're just about at the end of the section. Would anybody like to make a motion on that item? Because otherwise it will not be included in the budget in its current form.
Yeah, I'll make that motion. Okay.
Sure.
I make the motion that, item 12F, sorry, I'm trying to think what the language is. That the budget adjustment, 12F, to the amount of $15,000, be accepted into our 2023 budget.
All right.
Included, I guess acceptance is it's a little more than inclusion. So.
Is there any questions on this? All right, is anybody opposed to this? Would you like to speak to that, or do you just want to go to?
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
We've
already
here.
Okay, then I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. All right, I am just noting the time here, and it's about 10 to 9, and if we want to extend, we can go for an additional half hour, I believe. If we choose to, we do need a motion to do that.
I move that we send the meeting to all
All right, excellent. Any discussion on that?
So I believe that we aren't going to get to the rest of this before 9:30 anyway. So if that does happen, I guess maybe a question to Admin or the mayor, what happens then?
I believe in our next meeting agenda that we just did we not allocate time for additional budget?
You can allocate time for that. Absolutely.
And so that would be on the
May 2nd.
May 2nd, which is next week already.
Yes, your new CA will be here, so we can still have time to continue debating.
There we go. I'm just trying to remember our agenda setting. Was it quite heavy? Do you
No, we
remember?
took some things off.
Took some things off, okay.
As a council, we go at your pace and we will accommodate in service as you require. So if you want to keep pressing through until 9:30, we'll go to 9:30. What's not accomplished, we can do it May 2nd.
Okay.
If you could just vote on the motion, though, that would be appreciated.
I'm gonna do that right now. All right, so Deputy Mayor Bushry is making that motion, then we go to 9:30. A question, all in favor? All right, that's carried. Okay, moving on, we're on 6.8. I believe because we're all done with administration now. Budget motion 23, which is the fire department, and Councillor Ackerman's response to this motion.
Yeah, I move that adjustment 23A fire department, debenture payment removed for $16,175 be included in the 2023 budget. So that's a reduction just to kind of align with the debenture payment. It's just kind of keeping our books clean and just practicing good governance more than anything, so we'll keep it short.
Great. Any questions for administration or Councillor Ackerman's?
So debenture payment removed. Are we saying that we're pulling that out as a line item because we paid off the debenture? Is that what we're saying? Okay. Because when I'm looking in the total column, I'm seeing that amount sitting there, so I was feeling some confusion about it. Should be a negative in there, I think. Maybe I missed a negative in that motion. Yeah, it's okay, but just sort of that net, right? The net column, so I felt some confusion, and I just, for clarity, thank you, that's all.
Is anybody in opposition to this? If not, I will call the question. All in favor? That's carried. All right, we got that on one pretty good. Okay, going to 6.9, we've got budget motion 31A to 31A to C, Public Works and Common Services, and this is Councillor Florence.
Thank you. So I move that adjustments 31A, the software implementation cost, 31B, safety software annual cost, and 31C, the asset retirement obligation study under the Public Works and Common Services budget line, be included in the 2023 budget, with 21,000 coming from MSI operating funds and 1,000 being added to the 2023 budget from taxation. So this aligns with our strategic plan with Pillar A, Goal 2 and 3, so provide Coalhurst residents with exceptional service and make informed decisions on the principles of good governance, as well as Pillar C, land and environmental responsibility, and developing infrastructure that meets community needs. So the rationale behind this is just ensuring, in order to provide residents with exceptional service as identified in our strategic plan, staff need to be resourced with the right tools to effectively and efficiently do their jobs. The addition of the safety software for the public works team has allowed for common workplace practices to be streamlined and shared with greater efficiency while improving overall safety practices, and that is something that council values. The addition also allows for pertinent information to be recorded as data, and having that information and data available to staff means that it is readily available and shareable, resulting in greater cross-training opportunities in addressing succession in our staffing model, which is the point on our strategic plan, as well as ensuring staff are well-informed and well-equipped to do their jobs. We also want to stay current with technology and the changing times. And with the funding for the asset retirement obligation study, council has identified in our strat plan a performance measure to know how we've met goal 1, to develop infrastructure. And that is that the town has funds and follows a comprehensive asset management plan. So funding this asset retirement obligation study is an important component to ensuring we have a relevant and in-depth asset management program. As well, it helps inform our operating and capital plan that is required by the NGA.
Excellent, thank you. Is anybody opposed, or I also have questions first, I forgot that part. Good. Does anyone have any questions for Council Lawrence or administration?
The study was increased to perhaps include greenhouse gas emissions or something like that. It could be a more comprehensive building condition assessment, which would qualify for certain grants, potentially. But and I know our administration hasn't looked at that, of course. I'm just wondering I guess if it's the best, if there might be other grant funding available, and would we have time to be able to pursue it potentially? I guess maybe not. So I don't know. Maybe it's not a question at all. Just talking out loud.
Do you have a response to whatever you said?
I can respond.
Okay.
Mayor Poetry. A separate grant program has not been considered. Although there's, if by broadening the scope, it very well meets something that would be within some kind of grant program. But as you identified, the timing. This is something that has to be in place by the end of the year with information to assess what any liabilities that may exist. So I think it really does come down to how much time there is, and this is a requirement that every single municipality, school boards, universities, colleges are also going to be looking at completing. And so getting ahead of the game is going to be, I think, key in getting it done for Coalhurst, and that we can get someone doing this before someone else is, and we can get our information sooner rather than later. So I think timing is there's a bit of a time's of the essence on this one.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That's the answer I was expecting as well.
Is there any other questions? Is anyone in opposition of this motion? If not, I will call the question. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. You just made me realize I did my motion wrong too, so now we're trying to fix it. So I was doing some weird math. Okay, moving on. We're moving on to 6.10, which is budget motion water 41A and 41B. And Councilor Florence, this is yours again.
Thank you. So I move that item 41A, the water reserve contribution at amount of 20,000, and 41B, debenture payment removed at an amount of 19,600, be included in the 2023 budget, resulting in a $400 adjustment. So just a little tiny adjustment. So this speaks to goal 2 of our strat plan, provide Coalhurst with residents with exceptional service, and pillar C, land and environmental responsibility. Anyway, the rationale is contributing funds to water reserves is the right thing to do. It's proven to be saving for the future, especially with the need for more water capacity, water treatment capacity. water treatment capacity of our water, protection of water, and future growth of Coalhurst. We have opportunity to contribute more to reserves as part of this budget adjustment, and I think it would be a really good idea to do so, as well as prepaying the older debenture and removing it from this line, cleared up allocations to be used in other areas. So this is resulting in just a 400.
The amounts already in those line items, or in that line item already. So, to reserves for our water.
It's 35,000.
Quit doing my job for me.
Sorry.
35.
Sorry.
You have those tabs open already, don't you?
Well, I have to have like 8 open so I can remember to think.
Thanks.
All right, is there any other questions? Yes.
Do we know what our total reserve is, our total water reserve is at this point? Do you have that tab open?
Yeah, do you want me to pull it up?
The race now.
I'm not even doing it.
At the end of 2022, the balance is $763,000.
Any further questions? Okay, is there anyone in opposition to this motion? Great, would you like to speak to it?
Sorry, yeah, I'll speak to that, thank you. Well, I probably am the first one to cheer on the practice of reserves and preparing for our future water. I understand that within these adjustments, we have put some amounts in our budget that increase the budget, and I would like us to sort of balance that out with our practice of reserves. Typically in the past, we have always been very conscious in placing reserves and making them be a part of our budget. We haven't really said, we have this extra money, so we're gonna throw it in there in spite of the fact that we might have to increase our budget. So this is new to me, and even the way I'm explaining it, trying to wrap my mind around this, and so I am opposed to increasing the amount, knowing that that means that we will have to increase our budget ask, and it may have some implication on our taxes. And if I'm not correct in that, please correct me.
Through the chair to Council Caldwell, by not adding $20,000 to this, it would reduce the need for taxation by $20,000.
Thank you, and you said it's so much more clarity, thank you very much.
Are you speaking,
Well,
in
for
opposition or-
clarification,
Okay.
question. On the venture payment that was removed, what was the project that was for?
Through the chair to there was a water line that was constructed. I believe it's the water line that brings water to Coalhurst. That's what was eventually.
I guess I have a further question then. I know we have a practice, but do we have a policy that states that if this money is attached to water, do we have to put it into water reserves? Because we're realizing the savings on the debenture of our water line. So we've sort of said that, any funds that we work with within a specific department, that we sort of keep it in that department. Do you have a policy around that? That says that we should be doing this, or?
No, through your worship to Councillor Caldwell, when we had the conversation with council, talking about the debentures and came back with the third sort of reallocation, there was the recognition that a large portion of the debentures were actually covered from utilities. And so the sentiment was, if these revenues, these funds have been generated through utilities, reallocating the resource back into utilities would actually be a very prudent use of the funds. So that's why this particular amount comes from a water utility project
going back into water utility.
Thank you. So it's our practice, so not our policy.
It's a practice, yeah.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Sorry, but corporate services main passage just said that if we lower it, lowers taxation.
The $20,000 budget.
So while it may be from utility revenue, it's still affects taxations.
It's the debenture payment through your worship to Deputy Mayor Potter. It's the debenture payment that has disappeared. The difference being the $48,000 adjustment. Did I make that clear? I'm muddying the waters.
Like you're talking about.
So we're talking about water.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna take a drink of my water while here and, sewer, thank you, yes.
The same, it applies to those.
Through the chair, Councilor, it ends up, what this is looking at is, it's the bottom line, the town's bottom line, where what's needed the taxation required to run the operations. This, for the $20,000 here, reallocates that, though the bench payment that was pulled out towards the reserve. By not doing that, the bench payment removal just offsets taxation then. So by including the $20,000, it maintains those utility fees going towards the reserves. By removing the $20,000 reserve transfer, it ends up just doing that reserve payment, or the debenture payment removal, offsetting all operations.
Yeah, I'm just curious, so we're already contributing to 35 for water, and if we add the 20, we have a certain amount, we would have $55,000 per year going towards our water system, ongoing maintenance and infrastructure, right? And we have a certain amount of water lines that we have to maintain in our town as an asset. Is there any kind of best practices out there that kind of say, you, if your asset is this number, you should be allocating this much per year type of thing?
To Council Coach through the chair, not to my knowledge, there's not 300 municipalities in Alberta, and I think there's 300 different ways of doing it.
Yeah.
I guess somebody would figure it out. 300 municipalities, I'm just one asking the question.
Okay, so Councilor Caldwell spoke in opposition. We had some questions.
Sorry.
No, that's okay, because I was trying to clarify it too, so that's good. Anyone in favor of the question? Anyone like to speak? Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So I think that we've had lots of talks about water lately and what water means to Coalhurst and what future growth looks like with our needs and our ability to have the right amount of water to be able to service, new areas for new residents, new businesses and things like that. We have lots of conversations and I like how we get really protective of our water, and we don't like when the city calls it their water, because it's our water that they're treating, right? And so I think that putting this money into reserves, although we're already putting 35,000 in as part of the spring adjustment, I think it's a good idea because I think that we're going to be of one of those like looming issues coming up for us, and so that's why I support the extra $20,000 into this, even though it hurts my cheek a little hard. So no, I'm just kidding. But yeah.
All right. Is there any further discussion? If there's not, so we do have the motion here. Do you want to just read that again? So just so it's been a couple of minutes since we've done it.
I move that items 41A, water reserve contribution at amount of 20,000, and 41B, debenture payment removed at amount of 90,600, be included in the 2023 budget, resulting in a $400 adjustment.
Great, thank you. So I'm going to call the question. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you.
I actually didn't do that accurately. I should have separated them out. I wasn't going to do
You did.
it.
In fact, the next one.
Okay. Actually, no, your very stirring words convinced me.
Perfect.
Awesome.
It's democracy.
Okay, we're going to move on. Budget motion 42A, sewer reserve contribution, and 42B, debenture payment removed. Right, we didn't do that one yet. Okay.
It's when I
We talked about it.
I know.
One
We just talked about it.
Yes.
Okay, I'm just gonna try to run over it.
Thank you, and I have to say, writing them, it was a little bit confusing, I was like, which one's which? So, this is very similar to the last one, so I'll try to move through it very quickly. I move that items 42A, sewer reserve contribution at an amount of $20,000, and 42B, debenture payment removed at an amount of $68,000, be included in the 2023 budget, resulting in a $48,000 adjustment. So contributing funds to sewer reserves is pertinent to our future growth and capacity needs of Coalhurst. The town, again, needs to be saving for future projects, especially with the need for more sewer treatment capacity to be able to accommodate that future growth. It's also very important to save for maintenance, repairs, and upgrades to the sewer infrastructure. And we also have an opportunity to contribute more to reserves as part of the spring 2023 budget adjustments, as we did with the water, and I think it would be a good idea to do this for the same reasons. Again, prepaying those older debentures cleared up allocations to be used in other areas, such as the ability to put the extra funds into this sewer reserve, resulting in this spring adjustment and a large reduction in this line and a $48,000 budget implication. For community citizen implication, use.
For sewage?
At the end of 2022, there is $751,000.
Any further questions? Is anybody opposed to this motion? If not, I'm going to call the question. All in favor? That's carried. Oh, look at us go.
Oh my goodness.
Okay.
I was gonna separate them out just for a really great debate,
Oh, God.
but,
We're doing so good.
we've got some new big growth coming up, and I recognize that need. Thank you.
So moving on to 6.12, budget motion 66A, land and development. Councilor Florence, this is yours as well.
Okay, thank you. So I move that the debenture payment be removed under line item 66A, land and development in the 2023 budget at an amount of $14,670. Sorry, did I screw up?
13,000.
Oh.
Sorry.
13,670, okay, spelling error, my bad. The strategic plan alignment, it's effective and informed governance, strong and sustainable economy, and the rationale is removing the debenture payment from the budget line as it's been paid out.
Great. Any questions? Anyone opposed? Call the question. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. Moving on now to motion 72A and B, Parks and Recreation. This is me. I did bad math, so I'm actually changing my motion, I think. Yes, I am. So I move that budget adjustment 72A and B be included in the 2023 budget, with $969 coming from MSI operating and $231 from taxation. So along with this is for the laptop as well as just learning from the conference. This is a new department that we are creating. They obviously need resources and knowledge to do things. And when I looked at this with the implications, it's really looking at the community will benefit from consistent unique programming and events that this person will bring. And yeah, so it is, my numbers were just wrong in there. So is there any questions on this item? Yes.
Sorry, with $969 from
MSI operating,
municipal
yeah.
and $231 from taxation.
Yes.
2,031, thank you.
I just took that off, so I just was like, that'll just happen. So, so that was my math and my mistake. Is there any further questions?
So just to clarify, the
Yes.
goal is $3,000 in resources for this individual.
It is, but it just happens to be split out based on the MSI as well as the taxation as per the budget adjustment note that Mike gave us. So I just didn't account for it properly. I just got rid of the MSI and said that would just magically happen. Is there anyone in opposition to this? If there's not, I will call the question. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. And then moving on to the next one. This is 6.14. Oh, look, we've only got a couple left, guys. This is for 72C community events. And so I moved that adjustment 72C community events for $30,000 be included in the 2023 budget. When I was looking at this, we know that our community wants to see regular events and programming be delivered, and we are having a newly formed community development coordinator position coming on board shortly. And so when I was looking at this, thank you to Director of Corporate Services for providing some of those actual numbers, which you can see in the supporting information. I kind of looked at this and said we had originally had potential up to $45,000, but considering that we have now transferred the Cinnamon Bun completely off of our books, and that Family Day has already happened, we really only have, Canada Day and Miners Days as the two large events that are happening. And looking at the actuals from the past, I kind of looked at that and said they also need probably some seed money to start with some other type of programming. And so I estimated around $30,000. Again, I think that this is something where we're going to establish that baseline or try to get a starter for this year, and then we'll have a better idea for next year because this is a new department, I suppose. So one of the implications that goes along with this is that the community can expect that ongoing and annual recreation programming, as well as the other things that will actually be doing as well. And so that's, I think, all I'm going to say about that. Any questions for me or administration? Yes.
Yeah, question for administration. Just looking at the spreadsheet that was provided, there is a negative 10,000 revenue with, I believe it was 45,000 before I'm assuming you're changing it to 30,000 for the expenses, or 30,000 net?
It's 30,000 net because the Cinnamon Bun, we don't do it at all.
Okay. So I guess I was just seeking to clarify where that $10,000 revenue on that line item came from.
Through the chair to Councilor Atkins, the 10,000 was to offset the cost of, or the revenue that we earned from the Cinnamon Bun. But if that is no longer with the town, then the 10,000 revenue would be there, and the $10,000 expense would be there for the net, not being 35,000 as presented and provided in the document.
Is there any further questions? Yes.
In terms of our budget year, would this incorporate Family Day next year?
No, because we budget calendar year.
Calendar year, not tax year.
If there's no further questions, I'll ask, is anybody opposed? No.
Okay, and I would like to oppose it.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. So, okay, so I am opposing this because of, based on the cost of 2019, the Canada Day event was $6,000. So we had 1,100 from the grant and 4,900 from the budget line. Historically, for all town events, there was a $10,000 budget line with 2,500 for each event. So Family Day, Canada Day, the Family Fun Run, and then 25 for smaller events. It's also important to note that there was cost offsetting for each of these events. So Family Day cost more in 2020, but what you're not seeing is a slight offset of cost for user fees for things like face painting and VR play, and things like that, which lends to another to borrow the committee seed money, $5,000 a year for the event, which was to be paid back at the end of the year. So that ended and again, I'm not exactly when that started, but it ended in 2015. In 2015, there was a committee formed, a not-for-profit, with the help of Christine Cassie, and to take on the role of Miners Days. And the committee never again borrowed $5,000 from the town and started their own bank account. There was sponsorship opportunities, there was sales, there was fundraisers, things like that, to offset the cost of Miners Days. Of course, including user fees for food, rides, things like that. There needs to be offsetting fees. The committee was able to increase revenues for each one of those years and never again borrow that $5,000. And this is important to know because going into this conversation and setting the budget, while we do need to set a baseline, I think that we need to consider what it was in the past. I also think that it's not been a budget line for many years because the town owns Miners, like the people own Miners Days, not the town of Coalhurst. However, that model obviously wasn't sustainable, and here we are. So the town does need to put some money behind it, but there also needs to be an opportunity for, I believe there should be an opportunity for corporate sponsorship. And I feel like we'd be denying businesses, residents, an opportunity to be a part of this event, which is woven into the fabric of our community, if we were to fund this entirely from town funds and not from sponsorship, fundraising, and things like that. Being that this coordinator position is new, I'm hoping that's something that can grow in future years. And that's why I wanted to suggest just a friendly, because I think we all realize that there needs to be, and like money designated to this line, it's just how much, right? So I think that the town needs to help also, not just in terms of giving money for the event, but in terms of staff support, you know, to be able to provide more staff than just one person to help set up the event. You know, it's no longer run by volunteers, but I mean, it can't fall onto the back of one person, right? So there's a team of people doing it. I think the town can support it by donating spaces and use of facilities, which they've always done in the past, which is a huge donation. It makes a big impact. And anytime the town donates the facility, that's money that they're not lending out to somebody else, right? Weekends in the summer are prime, so I see it as a really big donation. Again, with offsetting costs, I really believe that there needs to be some offsetting costs for these events. And so I'm just going to collect my thoughts because my notes are all over the place. So with that, and with, as Mayor Martina mentioned, Family Day already being passed, I'm opposed to the amount being $30,000. I think that's way too high. I think $15,000 would be a more appropriate amount for this year to start.
Great, thank you. Anyone in favor of the motion that would like to speak? Go ahead.
Thank you. I always appreciate the history of our volunteers in this community, because we have had some tremendous leadership in our community, so thank you for that. But you're right, times have changed. We do have a position that's coming on board, and we have very high expectations of this person. Whoever takes this job, we want to move forward our strategic plan. We want to really establish and finding all of these things that may become a priority, as opposed to sort of that whole, the blanket of everything that we're going to be asking. And so while I agree with what you say in principle, I respect what you're saying, I think that I would want to approve this budget amount and revisit this next year, when that person has got their feet on the ground for a bit and has a better a grip on what we're doing with our community.
Thank you. Anyone in opposition would like to speak? Anyone in favor would like to speak? Go ahead.
I actually would just like to start with a question, I guess. I wondered if administration could actually clarify what the job posting, how a position is currently intended to be functioning with the job posting that was put out there. The
Job description.
The job description, yeah.
Through your worship to Deputy Mayor Patry, as I talk slowly, so I rapidly click on things to get to it.
Don't click on the sewer one.
Yes, so our sewer lines are. So the position has been addressed as being a connector for facilitating action in the community. You work to create an interconnectivity of knowledge, passion, and activity in our volunteers, focused on the events, programs, communication services that enhance social and physical well-being of individuals, families, and groups targeted to all demographics in Coalhurst. This is a new position with strong influence in creating medium and long-term opportunities. The position will spearhead a diversity of tasks, including but not limited to internal and external communications and correspondence, arts, culture, recreation, sustainability, community events, tourism, external promotions, clerical support related to department and other duties as determined and assigned by the CAO. It's a high, work involves a high level of interaction with the public through event planning and coordination with community stakeholders, accurate dissemination and relay of information for community relevant to town personnel as needed. Basically, everything that's in the job description came from council's conversation about the position. So it's your vision. This is a strategic objective of council. It's your vision. The concept or the idea is that this is an individual that's going to connect people in the community. It's not only going to tap into that sort of 20-80 factor, 20% of the volunteers doing, 20% of the population doing 80% of volunteerism, but it's about identifying, targeting new volunteers. It's finding other people in the community. It's about, we know that Mary and John do this, and Susie and David do this, and it's an extension of resources. Why aren't the four of them working together? It's that type of connectivity. There's an understanding and recognition that this is a new position and we're coming out of COVID. We've lost volunteers, we've lost some enthusiasm, that there's a desire to reconnect. This individual's going to have to hit the ground running and running hard on a couple of these events. There's going to be costs associated with that because we don't necessarily have a volunteer base. That said, we don't know what the volunteer base is because they've not been identified because we don't have that sort of data. We can put out a social media post, we can try to connect with people in the community, get them to come out, but there's that uncertainty as to what you're going to have. But there's still the expectation that the town is going to deliver something to the community. Does that answer your question?
That answers my question very well, thank you. And I wanted to manage those expectations with the new staff role, just in the context of our discussion here, right? So, and I think administration has gone in a direction which we've been leading on, in that they won't be able to spend all their time running the event. They will need the support of they will need funding and support volunteers. So, in that respect, I think we very much in this motion has allocated the appropriate.
I guess just in closing for myself, reading that job description, I think that it really encapsulates us. And I don't know if community events are that exploration into whatever that could look like. And that's all I will say before I call the question. Again, I'll just read my motion again. So I move that the adjustment 72C events for $30,000 be included in the 2023 budget. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Okay, so we are almost at 9:30, so I'm actually going to just call for a motion to adjourn. We've got two items left that we will carry on with that at our next meeting if everybody's okay with that. Motion to adjourn?
Yeah, sorry, I was just gonna say, I was like, we could probably knock this one, but yes, sorry, motion to adjourn at 9:27 p.m.
Excellent. Any discussion? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So bad.
Jeff, I